guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a quick first impressions for you, not on any of these knives. This is, of course, the Ramon Chavez 229 Liberation, and this is the Cold Steel AD15 designed by Andrew Demko. Both these are great knife designs by great knife designers, and we have been doing, collaborations between knife designers and production companies for a long time. However, every once in a while you get something like this. This is a collaboration between a YouTuber and a production company, in this case Twosun. So I'm going to have a couple of things to say about that by way of first impression, but let me say beforehand that LTK, I've got to give him some props because he was one of the early ones. After he did this, there were already some other YouTubers who had done knife designs, but these days, it's almost a cliche that every YouTuber has to have their own knife, and sometimes multiple knives. And you know what? That's great. And I hope sometimes I really like those knives. Oftentimes, all of their experience handling hundreds and thousands of knives informs their design choices, and so it can result in some really cool stuff. And so that's great. And I think this is actually a case where the design has resulted in something really cool. And here's the reason. So Twosun, they often have designs that are a little out there. I don't love a lot of the Twosun designs. Every once in a while, there's one that I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But then when you look into getting your hands on one, you can't buy them anyway. And that's not so different with this knife. But Love Them Knives comes along and says, hey, I want to design a knife. Let's do it with Twosun. And he designs a really great looking knife. Like, this is fairly standard stuff. It has a lot of features that I really like. So let me touch on those features quickly. Okay, we've got some thick M390 blade stock up here. I love to see thick, heavy duty blade stock. That's a big pet peeve of mine that these days we're not seeing this much anymore. Of course, the knife is large, very large. Just to give you an idea, it is almost as big as my Cold Steel 4-Max. It's 9 5/16 inches overall, and the 4-Max I think is 10 inches overall. Okay, so big knife, tons of grip area, very thick handle. The handle is 5/8 of an inch thick, so it feels fantastic in hand. The blade stock is very confidence inspiring, so there's a lot to love. We've got nice big dual row ceramic bearings in here, and the action on this is phenomenal. Very good action on this knife. This is super easy to take apart, by the way. If you got to take this apart and clean it, there is a full backspacer, which makes it a little tougher to clean out, but pop this thing apart. It comes apart so easily. You will find a lot of milling inside here. You'll also find LTK Love Them Knives logo in here. So really cool knife to take apart. The centering, as you can see, is pretty good. Now, it's a teeny tiny bit off, and you probably wouldn't notice that on most knives, but this has a groove cut into the backspacer, which makes the slightest error in centering kind of stand out like a sore thumb. That's fine. That doesn't affect the performance of the knife in any way. There are a couple of things, though, that I noticed right away. First thing is this knife has a little bit of blade play. I'm not a fan of blade play, and this does have some. That's a pretty typical problem for button locks. And so I've got right off the hop, and even before I ever got my hands on this knife, a button lock is just not the lock for this style of knife. If you want to make a heavy duty knife, you don't use a button lock because it's not a heavy duty lock. You use maybe a frame lock, a back lock of some kind. Nowadays, we're seeing a lot of button compression locks, which would be a great option for this. You could retain your button, but have a much stronger locking mechanism. Anyway, button locks, one, are not as strong, and two, they lend themselves to blade play because you have to have sort of a perfect interface between the cutout in the blade tang and the pin that pops into place and locks the blade open. And so if this can move at all, right? So think about this, if it's just a little bit too big, now I've got movement. If it wears a little bit, right? This wears down and it gets a teeny bit smaller, now I've got movement. If I get, so it's just a knife, it's just a lock design that lends itself to problems because it tends to wear. All metal on metal is going to wear over time, and when this does wear, then it can develop a little bit of blade play. The other problem here is you can see that this pin moves through 2 holes in the scales. Well, guess what? If you get wear around those holes in the scales, same thing. You're going to get a little bit of blade play. And so it's not the end of the world, but it's definitely there. Now that I've pointed out one of the issues, the other issue that I have with this knife is its absolute inability. The detent is just too strong on this. So for me, essentially it functions the way the Civivi button lock functioned. You can, by the way, it doesn't. I can pull the blade, and sometimes I do a 2-hand opening. You can also do a 2-hand opening like this, and we've all probably done that before with knives that have a really stiff detent. And so, yeah, the 2 issues here are the button lock was not the right choice for this design, and the fuller needs to be much sharper. And I may or may not end up cutting this out completely. It's definitely on the list of possible ways to remedy this. Now, I've carried this a little bit, but I'm going to carry it a little more and see if I just get comfortable with remembering to push the button and just opening it that way. And I'm totally fine with that. I do want to point out, I think I've missed a couple of specs. So let me give you all the specs again in one spot in the video, just in case. So overall, this is 9 5/16. The blade is almost 4 inches long. It's 3 15/16, so just a hair, 1/16 short, 3 3/4 inches of cutting edge. So that's lots. Now this is 5.5 inches closed. Okay, so big, substantial knife. It's going to take up some space in your pocket. 4 3/8 inches of grip area. So this has a ton of grip area. If you have, giant ape hands, you are good to go. Sasquatch could easily carry this knife without an issue. The weight on this is 6.2 ounces, which is not bad at all for a knife of this size. A lot of the larger knives are going to get up there past 7 ounces, past 8 ounces sometimes. And really, as long as they're under 7 ounces, I don't really notice carrying it. I know what they say, no sense, no feeling. But nonetheless, I don't really notice knives that are, under 6.5 ounces. So not a big deal for me. Lastly, this is thicker than most knives you're going to see. This is a full 5/8 of an inch thick, which is definitely noticeable. So that's something you might want to be aware of as well. Now, the result is that it makes a very comfortable knife. All right, so it feels really good in hand because it's nice and thick and hand filling, but it's also going to be noticeable in pocket. Finally, we have the milled titanium clip here that is not reversible. It's right side tip up only, and we've got that nice bearing surface under the clip, which I actually really, really like. This was a sort of a Todd bag idea, and it's been used in a couple of other places, and it does work really well. Okay, so what are my first impressions on this knife? My overall thoughts, only having this out of the box for like a day. Yeah, really nice knife. It feels great in hand. It has a ton of features that I love. There are a couple of misses here, and so the main thing, it's not a complete washout, this knife. It's still a good folder, but if they did a Vandal 2 and remedied some of the issues, and LTK, if you ever watch this, love your work. We've interacted lots of times. In fact, I used to buy stuff from LTK from time to time back in the day, but with the border stuff, that's a little more difficult. Anyway, great knife design, very, very close to perfection. Just needs a couple little tweaks, and it would, in a perfect world, those tweaks would get made and we'll have a Vandal 2 at some point, although I don't know that there's any interest or intent to do that. But I will send an email and see if I can get any more information and come back with that in the full review. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of this one down in the comments below. We will talk to you soon.